Usually when we talk about imagination, there's this built-in expectation of safety.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's a sandbox. You go in, you build whatever wild castles you want in your head, you knock them down, and then you just step out.
Exactly. You just brush off the sand.
Yeah, you shake off the sand, and reality is exactly as you left it. But today we are pulling from this incredible essay called The Creative Force of the Imaginal Mind to completely shatter that assumption for you.
We really are. It completely flips the script.
It does. So our mission today, for you listening, is to prove that imagination isn't just some harmless drac for reality. It is actually the very first physical step of it. Okay, let's unpack this. Because we rarely ask what happens after we imagine something.
Yeah, and that sandbox illusion is just a massive blind spot for us. I mean, society has essentially conditioned us to treat the imagined as having no mass, right? Like it has no weight, no consequence.
Ah, just fleeting thoughts.
Exactly. We treat daydreaming or, worrying as zero-stakes environment. But the text we're diving into reveals how consciousness and human physiology are actually inextricably linked.
Okay, so if imagination has real, actual physical consequences, we have to figure out where the domino effect actually starts in the body.
Right, the origin point.
Yeah, because if I'm just like sitting on my couch picturing a scenario, my muscles aren't moving, my environment isn't changing at all. So where does this process actually kick off?
Well, it starts right in your nervous system. The foundational mechanism, the thing you really have to understand here, is that your nervous system cannot distinguish between a real physical experience and a vividly imagined one.
Wait, I want to make sure I'm grasping the scale of that. Do you mean my brain processes the idea of a threat similarly to a real threat? Or do you mean my body is literally preparing to fight?
Oh, the latter. Absolutely the latter. It is pure measurable physiology.
Wow.
Yeah, the text gives some incredibly stark examples of this. Take professional athletes, for instance.
Huh?
When a gymnast sits on a bench with their eyes closed and mentally rehearses a complex physical routine, functional brain scans show something amazing.
What do they see?
They're activating the exact same motor pathways in the brain as they would if they were physically out on the mat performing the flips.
You're kidding, just from sitting there.
Just from sitting there. The brain literally fires the signals down the spinal cord. The microcontractions in the muscles begin. The body is firing up.
So the hardware is running the software, basically, even if the outward action is paused.
Precisely. And it goes so far beyond just physical movements. Think about fear,
Oh boy, yeah.
right? If you're sitting completely safe in your living room, but your mind is vividly picturing a terrible unseen threat.
Like a catastrophic failure at work or something.
Yes, or a loved one getting hurt. Your visual cortex lights up as if that exact event is unfolding right in front of you.
Even though you're perfectly safe.
Even though you are perfectly safe, your brain searches its immediate environment for a solution, finds none, and basically signals the amygdala to hit the panic button.
Wow.
You produce the exact same cascade of cortisol and adrenaline as if a tiger just walked through your front door.
That explains so much about modern anxiety, honestly. And the text also mentions anticipated grief, right?
Yes.
Which implies that if I'm dreading a loss that hasn't even happened yet, my body is basically being forced to mourn a ghost.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Yes. Mourning a loss that hasn't happened yet feels indistinguishable to your cellular biology from grief over a loss that has already occurred.
That is heavy.
It is. The
Right.
biological toll is identical. What's fascinating here is that the essay makes it so clear. Imagination is not a rehearsal for life. It is life.
Every story the mind tells is basically a biological directive. This reminds me of how we use our smartphones.
Oh, how so?
Well, it's like imagination is running a really heavy app in the background. You put your phone in your pocket, right? The screen is totally black. You aren't actively doing anything.
Right, right.
But then an hour later, your phone is burning hot and the battery is completely drained. The processor was running the whole time.
I love that analogy. And to take that smartphone analogy a step further, think about what happens when your battery gets critically low.
It goes into like power saving mode.
Exactly. Your device enters low power survival mode. It dims the screen. It shuts off non-essential functions.
Oh, wow. I see where you're going with this.
Right. When your imagination is constantly running these heavy, stress-inducing background apps, your biological battery drains. Your nervous system enters its own survival mode.
Making it incredibly difficult to access higher level thinking, creativity, or even empathy.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Because the body is constantly listening and responding to whatever app you left open in your head.
Which means we are never just having fleeting thoughts. We are being physically shaped by them in real time.
We really are.
But, okay, if my internal biology is being directed by my imagination, I have to ask how that translates to the outside world.
Right, the external reality.
Yeah, because my skeptical alarm bells are ringing just a little bit here.
Wait, is this just the law of attraction or some mystical positive thinking?
That's a very fair question.
Like if I just sit here and vividly imagine $1 million, the universe will manifest a briefcase on my porch.
Those alarm bells are entirely valid, and the author actually explicitly addresses that exact skepticism.
Okay, good.
They clarify that this is not popular mysticism or magic. We're talking about the very practical, proven mechanics of directed attention.
Directed attention. Okay.
Yeah, the Taoists refers to this process as world making, and it basically hinges on how human perception fundamentally operates.
So mechanically speaking, how does directed attention bridge that gap? Like between my internal cortisol spike and the actual real-world opportunities I encounter?
Well, it comes down to your perceptual filters. The world contains an infinite amount of data at any given millisecond.
Just way too much to process. Vastly more than your conscious mind can process without becoming entirely overwhelmed. So your brain has a filtering system. It deletes almost everything around you, letting in only what it deems relevant.
Okay, that makes sense.
But when you vividly imagine a specific possibility, you hand your mind a new template. You essentially reprogram the filter.
Oh, it sounds a bit like the red car syndrome.
Yes. Explain that for the listeners.
Yeah, so you buy a red car, and suddenly you see red cars on every single street, even though the actual number of red cars hasn't changed at all.
Exactly.
You just told your brain that red cars are now important data.
That is the exact mechanism.
Yeah.
But now, apply that red car phenomenon to complex human behavior and opportunities.
Okay.
If you vividly imagine starting a new business, you suddenly start noticing vacant storefronts. You hear a snippet of a conversation at a coffee shop about a supplier.
Right, things you would have normally just ignored.
Exactly. You notice an article about a market gap. Those stepping stones were hiding in plain sight the entire time, but your previous filter deleted them as irrelevant background noise.
So the imagine thing changes the imaginer, and then the changed imaginer walks into the room noticing entirely different doors.
Beautifully said. And because you're noticing different doors, you generate different encounters. You ask different
You
questions.
naturally arrive at different outcomes.
Exactly. Imagination doesn't magically teleport you to a result, but it guarantees movement. It makes the previously unreachable thing reachable simply because you can finally perceive the path to it.
Okay, so if imagination guarantees movement and alters what we perceive, we have to talk about what happens when we accidentally program our filters to look for the worst possible things.
Yes, we do.
Because, running that background app isn't always positive.
Right. The author refers to this as the shadow consequence.
The shadow consequence. That sounds ominous.
It is a bit. Imagination held in a destructive direction creates just as surely as imagination held in a constructive one.
Wow.
If you sustain fear or resentment in your imagination, you literally build what the text calls the neural scaffolding of avoidance.
So you're physically deepening the neural grooves that make resentment your default biological response?
Exactly.
The essay gives a pretty haunting example about betrayal, if I remember correctly.
It does, yeah. It describes a person who spends years imagining betrayal as a form of self-protection.
Like they're trying to beat people to the punch.
Right. They are constantly trying to anticipate how colleagues or partners might hurt them so they can be ready for the blow.
Okay, but let me push back on this, though. Isn't this just natural self-preservation?
How do you mean?
Like, my brain is wired to keep me safe from predators, right? How do we stop rehearsing betrayal if our brain is just trying to keep us safe in a dangerous environment?
That's a really important point, and the text actually validates that.
Yeah.
It emphasizes that the imagination turned toward fear usually has entirely valid origins.
Right. It's not just coming out of nowhere.
No, it's acting in good faith. It's a guard dog trying to keep you safe from a perceived threat. The problem arises with the duration and the adaptation.
Oh, like when the guard dog never goes off duty.
Exactly. When you sustain that rehearsal long past the immediate threat, it ceases to be a momentary survival tactic.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it becomes a somatic habit.
Somatic meaning it's literally stored in the physical tissues, like the posture and the baseline reactions of your body.
Correct. The tension in your shoulders, the shallow breathing, the quickness to snap defensively.
All of that.
Yes, those are somatic habits born from an imagined threat. And the Deepest danger here, the real shadow consequence, is that once these habits form, they become entirely invisible to the person experiencing them.
Invisible because they stop feeling like a creative act of imagination.
Right.
You don't walk around saying, hey, I'm currently running a mental simulation where everyone betrays me. You just say, the world is a place where everyone betrays me.
You mistake the filter for the whole picture. The imagination becomes the assumed texture of reality.
That is so wild.
And the person trained to look for betrayal will subtly project that expectation. Their defensive body language, their closed-off tone, their lack of trust.
It almost creates a self-fulfilling prophecy, doesn't it?
It does. It often ends up provoking the exact betrayal they were trying to avoid.
Okay, so if we are walking around trapped in these invisible somatic habits that feel like objective reality, we have to figure out who built that reality in the first place.
That's the big question.
Because we didn't invent all of our own fears from scratch. Where do these default templates come from before we're even old enough to consciously program our own filters?
Well, the essay points directly to the concept of inherited imagination.
Inherited imagination.
Yes, before we ever possess the ability to consciously imagine for ourselves, someone else imagined on our behalf. We inherited a massive library of images during our childhoods.
Meaning the stories we were told, the media we consumed, the family dynamics we witnessed.
All of it. And the text argues these are not just innocent decorations of childhood, they are the primary architecture of the inner world.
Wow.
Long before a child has the vocabulary to articulate their worldview, they are handed the rules of existence. Who is powerful, who is helpless, who is worthy of rescue.
Who has to do the rescuing?
Right, and fundamentally, whether the world is a place of abundance or scarcity.
Man, it really makes me think of trying to build a custom house on a pre-poured, severely warped concrete foundation.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Like, you can buy the nicest lumber, you can hire the best architects, you can have a grand vision for a beautiful, expansive life, but if the foundational slab you are handed is crooked, every single wall you try to build is going to fight gravity.
Exactly.
The essay calls these inherited images the substrate or the floor, right?
That analogy captures the struggle perfectly, yes. If your cultural or familial floor was built from stories of limitation, danger, or unworthiness, then any subsequent imagination that attempts to grow from it has to fight its own foundation.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. It requires immense conscious energy to imagine past the limits of what you were implicitly taught was possible for someone like you.
And this scales up far beyond individual families, right? This is a massive cultural issue.
Oh, absolutely. The author is incredibly poignant on this front.
Well,
They introduce this concept of the imaginative wound.
the imaginative wound.
Yes, when entire communities are shaped by the images they are given, or just as crucially, the images deliberately withheld from them, the consequences span generations.
Because if you grow up surrounded by stories where people who look like you or love like you are entirely absent or, only portrayed as monstrous or subordinate,
Yes,
your filter is basically being programmed to delete your own potential.
that's it. Exactly. The text argues this goes far beyond a simple representational problem in media. It's a profound wound to the human imagination itself.
Right.
It artificially restricts the field of the possible before the individual even gets a chance to start dreaming. Therefore, trying to reclaim your imagination isn't merely a solitary self-help project.
It's bigger than that.
It is a collective act of repair.
So if my childhood floor was poured by the culture around me, that means my private thoughts about other people aren't actually private at all?
No, they really aren't.
The way I imagine you literally becomes the floor you have to walk on. This ties directly into what the essay calls the ethics of the imaginal, right?
It does. Because imagination adjusts our biological state and our perceptual filters. Any powerful act of imagination carries real responsibility. To imagine another person is to actually do something to them.
Wait, I want to break down the mechanics of that. If I'm holding a private thought about you, how does that translate into an action upon you?
Well, the text contrasts two specific ways we hold each other. The first is a diminished imagination.
Okay, diminished.
Suppose you hold an image of a colleague as permanently annoying or lazy or fixed in their past failures. Even if you never say a single harsh word to them, your perceptual filter has changed.
Right, the filter we talked about earlier.
Exactly. You will begin to unconsciously look for evidence that confirms they are lazy while filtering out evidence of their hard work.
And that filter changes my physical behavior toward them.
Yes. It alters your microexpressions. It changes your tone of voice, The fraction of a second you delay before answering them, your eye contact.
And people pick up on that.
Humans have incredibly attuned mirror neuron systems. The essay notes that people can almost always sense when they are being held in a diminished imagination.
Even if they can't quite put their finger on it.
Right. They might not be able to name it, but they feel the quality of contact shift. They feel the space around them shrink.
They can feel the warped floor you put them on, basically. And they often end up performing down to that exact expectation.
Sadly, yes.
But the flip side of that must be where the real power lies. What happens when we hold someone in what the text calls a high imagining?
This is where it gets beautiful. Holding someone in a high imagining means choosing to see their potential before it is even visible to them. You imagine them capable of far more than they currently believe they are. The author argues this is one of the most generative gifts one human can offer another.
Because my microexpressions, my tone, and my attention are now signaling safety and possibility to their nervous system.
Exactly that. You create a relational condition where they don't have to spend energy defending themselves against a diminished expectation.
I can just thrive.
They can use that energy to actually become more than they thought they were, simply because you held that door open in your mind until they could walk through it in reality.
Yeah.
This is the ancient power of great teachers, mentors, and healers.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, yes.
We've spent a lot of time talking about projecting imagination outward, right? Pointing it toward other people and toward the future.
Right.
But the text makes an incredible pivot here. It states that imagination also reaches backward. But how do you change a past that's already happened? I mean, you can't unring a bell.
Well, you cannot change the objective facts of historical events, that's true. But the text asks us to understand narrative as a healing technology.
Narrative as technology.
Yes. Memory is not a static video file stored on a hard drive. Neurologically, memory is an act of reconstruction.
So it changes.
Every time you recall a past event, you are actively recreating it in the present moment. And because your nervous system is listening to the story you tell now, reimagining the past changes how your body holds that memory today.
Okay, walk me through a concrete scenario of how that works.
Sure.
Let's say I have a memory of being intensely scolded as a child, and the story my child brain wrote was, I am inherently bad and unworthy, and every time I remember it, my stomach just drops.
Right, a very common somatic response.
Eh.
In that scenario, the objective fact is the scolding.
Hmm.
The child's interpretation was unworthiness. But as an adult, you can use your expanded imagination to revisit that event.
How so?
You can imagine the immense pressure your parent was under that day. You can visualize the stress they were carrying that had absolutely nothing to do with you.
Oh, wow. So I'm not letting them off the hook or pretending it didn't hurt. I'm just changing the context around the event.
Exactly. And by changing the context, you change the meaning. The scolding becomes about the parent's overwhelm, not your fundamental lack of worth.
That makes total sense.
When that meaning shifts, the weight of the memory shifts. The somatic bracing, that stomach drop you mentioned, begins to release because your nervous system is no longer receiving the signal that you are inherently flawed.
The event is fixed, but the meaning is entirely malleable.
Beautifully put.
The present reaches back into the past, finds something unseen within it, and uses that new information to unlock a completely different future.
The author beautifully defines wisdom as the ability to hold both the wound and the gift of the wound simultaneously. You hold the reality of what happened alongside the newly imagined meaning that allows you to heal from it.
Holding the wound and the gift together, that is a profound way to frame our relationship with time. Man, we have covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have.
I mean, we started with the immediate split-second cortisol spike of a scary thought, walked through how that shapes our daily opportunities, examined the cultural floors we inherit, and finally explored how reimagining our own history can literally release trapped trauma in our bodies.
It's a sweeping journey, but every piece of it points back to the central thesis. Imagination is the very first form of action.
The very first form of action.
Yes. Every imagination of a better internal or external world creates the necessary conditions for that world to become a reality we can actually choose.
And the source text leaves us with some incredibly powerful historical context to really ground this idea, reminding us of what we owe the future, right?
It does. It notes that the human beings who imagined powered flight decades before the internal combustion engine was ready, they were not deluded. They were just early.
Right.
The people who imagined the end of global enslavement when it was the foundational pillar of the world economy were not impractical idealists. They were entirely necessary.
And the people today who are imagining a world where the living systems of the earth are honored rather than endlessly consumed, they aren't naive. They are doing the grueling, necessary work that always precedes profound change.
They are holding the image open long enough for reality to gather the resources to move toward it.
Wow.
Because the consequences of our imagination are already underway. The biological and cultural train has already left the station. The only question is whether you are in the driver's seat or just running default programs in the background.
We really have to recognize that the assumed texture of our reality isn't just fate. It's almost always someone's imagination.
Oh.
And understanding that gives us the terrifying, wonderful power to imagine differently. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want you to take a moment and really look at your own life. Think about an immovable fact you're dealing with right now, a limitation, a barrier, a frustrating dynamic with a colleague or a partner that you've entirely accepted as your unchangeable fate. I want you to ask yourself, is it actually objective reality? Or is it just someone else's invisible, inherited imagination that you've been rehearsing by default? And what happens to your reality tomorrow if you consciously choose to stop rehearsing it today?